Hey everyone, Mazer here, and I have a new movie review for you. Today we're going to talk about Hocus Pocus 2, the long-awaited sequel starring Sarah Jessica Parker, Kathy Najimy, and Bette Midler. Before we go into spoilers, I just want to give a brief opinion on the movie as a whole. Personally, I loved it! While not as good as the original, and come on, let's be honest, none of us expected it to be, it was still an entertaining romp with the Sanderson sisters. Sarah, Kathy, and Bette stepped back into the roles as if they never left the set to begin with. They ham it up beautifully, and I love them for it. As for the rest of the cast, they do well enough to keep the story moving. They're lacking a bit in the personality department, with the two main leads being somewhat carbon copies of one another. And then you got the story. There are parts of it that I liked and parts of it I didn't. So, without further ado, let's get into the spoiler territory and tell you in detail what I liked and didn't like about Hocus Pocus 2. Pros. The young Sanderson sisters, hands down one of the best parts of the movie. So much so that I would not mind a spin-off series starring these girls as young Sanderson sisters wreaking havoc on Salem. These actresses nail their adult counterparts' personality and quirks beautifully, and I love them for it. The original sisters, like I said before, it was as if Bette Midler, Kathy Najimy, and Sarah Jessica Parker had never left the set of the original movie. They still had that fun, manic energy that we got in the first movie, and I loved every minute that they were on screen. Lessons learned. The Sandersons have learned their lesson from the first movie. They are a lot more suspicious of the teenagers helping them out. Mary in particular refuses to let the girls out of her sight, always sneaking up on them whenever they try to escape. Winnie has also learned her lesson, deciding not to chase the girls at the end of the movie as she did in the first one, instead of focusing on finishing her spell to gain the ultimate power. I appreciated these moments as it showed the witches are still out of their element, but still learned a lot from their previous resurrection. The humor. I found myself chuckling throughout a majority of the movie. There are some legit funny moments, such as the bully not realizing that he was, in fact, a bully, and then feeling horrible about it. Or Mary's pet Roombas that follow her around. Or even Winifred losing a look-alike contest to a bunch of teenagers and then throwing a fit over it. I laughed quite a bit, and I appreciate this movie for making me laugh. Clichés subverted. This is a big one. Near the end of the movie, Mary and Sarah end up getting powers similar to Winifred's. There's a moment where Sarah finally stands up to Winnie, zapping lightning at Winnie's direction and demanding that her older sister give her the respect that she deserves. Soon after that, Winifred calls her sister parasites and how they're a constant burden upon her, during which Mary and Sarah exchange glances showing their dislike to the comparison. Now, in any other movie, this would be the moment where the sisters turn against Winifred, that they would prove that they were not as evil and doing only what Big Sister wanted. They would have destroyed her, freed themselves from Winnie's bullying, and lived their lives out in the modern world. But this never happens. Sarah immediately cowers when Winifred commands her to knock it off and get back to work. Another funny moment thanks to Parker's wonderful acting. And I appreciate that they decided not to end the movie on the villains turning against each other cliche. Sympathy for the devil. So Hocus Pocus 2 focuses on the Sandersons trying to break the reliance on the black flame candle. Winnie decides to invoke the forbidden spell that would make her the most powerful witch in the world. However, it comes with a price. Unbeknownst to Winnie, the spell will take from her which she loves most. Now tell me if you heard this one before. The big bad villain casts aside their minions and takes all the power for themselves. They admit to having never cared about their minions, which in turn results in the minions turning against the big bad. So this makes sense that Winifred would turn against Mary and Sarah after achieving the ultimate power. We would then learn that the thing Winnie loved the most was either herself, her magic, or her youth, one of which would be taken from her, resulting in either her death or the loss of her powers. Then Mary and Sarah would turn against the helpless Winnie, and the rest is history. Well, guess what? That never happens. As it turns out, Mary and Sarah are what Winnie loves the most. Despite all the abuse and frustrations, they are her sisters, and she loves them more than life itself. This results in a truly heartbreaking scene, with Winifred begging Book to bring them back. She is even willing to sacrifice all of her powers in order to be reunited with her sisters. It was wonderfully done and added a lot of depth to Winnie's character. Now, I know some people think of this as another attempt by Disney to make a misunderstood villain, but I disagree this time around. Winnie is not misunderstood. She is still a selfish, destructive, child-murdering monster. She is not a good person, but you can still have a horrible person that loves their family. For example, Devil's Rejects, Norman Bates, both murdering psychopaths, but still love and protect their family above all others. Just because she's upset about her sister's true death does not instantly make her a misunderstood villain. So that is what I loved about the movie. Now let's talk about the cons. Number 1, the leads. As I said before, our leading ladies were unfortunately not that interesting. Both characters were very similar in personality. I know that the first movie didn't have that much depth when it came to their characters, but at least they had different personalities. Max was the cynical, sarcastic, frustrated older brother. Danny was the spoiled, excitable, and manipulative little sister. And Allison was the smart, witty, and curious local girl. Becca and Izzy were both just the weird girls who liked witchy stuff. And that's pretty much it. We don't get anything about their likes, their dislikes, their family lives. Honestly, they could have been fleshed out a bit more. The musical number. To be honest, I don't dislike the big musical number, this time One Way or Another by Blondie. It's catchy, it's fun, and the sisters twist the lyrics around to match their intentions. It just couldn't live up to the absolute perfection that was I Put a Spell on You. Maybe if they'd chosen a different song, one that was more witchy themed or Halloween themed, it could have done better. But as it is, it just doesn't scream instant classic to me. The Mayor. So this is a weird one. A large portion of the movie revolves around Winifred hunting down the mayor. He is the descendant of the Reverend that banished them originally from Salem, and his blood is an important component for their potion. That's fine, except for the fact they don't do anything with it. They spend most of the movie looking for him, only to abandon that storyline in exchange for his daughter. It's not even that they couldn't find him. They do. They just decide to use his daughter instead. Now, if this had been a way to get even with the mayor using his daughter against him, then it would have worked. Except he doesn't even know that they kidnapped his daughter in the first place. So the whole mayor subplot just ends up being kind of useless. Self-referential humor. Now, this is a personal nitpick of mine, but there's something about today's humor in sequels that feels very self-referential. I'm not talking about the Easter eggs or the nods to the originals. I'm talking about the characters kind of knowing that they're in a Hocus Pocus movie. I don't know how to explain it, but it always feels like they're winking at the camera a little bit. I guess the best example would be at the end where our protagonists are walking down the street the same way the Sandersons walk. You know, arms connected, going like that. But then they kind of call themselves out on it and then question the walk and be like, why would they even walk like that to begin with? So it's kind of like they're referring the first movie, like, what was that all about? Why did they do this? And it's just not my cup of tea for sequels like this. It's a little too meta for my taste. Verdict! Despite the aforementioned problems, I really enjoyed this movie. All I wanted to do was watch Bette Midler, Sarah Jessica Parker, and Kathy Najimy having the time of their lives as the Sanderson sisters, and that is exactly what I got. There was never a moment where I didn't feel enchanted by their performances. Is this movie as good as the original? Hell no. That is lightning in a bottle. In fact, that movie was panned critically when it first came out and has grown into a cult classic over the years. Is this movie still fun, though? Yes. Yes, it is. And in the end, that is all that matters to me. This is definitely a movie that I will be adding to my yearly Halloween rotation. So tell me what you think. Did you enjoy the return of the Sandersons? Or did this movie feel a little flat to you? Did you like the music or did you hate it? Did you like Bette Midler, Sarah Jessica Parker, and Kathy Najimy returning? Or did you feel it was too little too late? Please let me know in the comments. Thank you for joining me today on this movie review of Hocus Pocus 2. I am your host, Mazer, and I will see you next time. Bye.